Welcome to day number 1 of Restoring Love. If day number 1 is this good, wait for day number 2. These guys here are remarkable. We have a history in our country of a Tea Party. They don't. Some of these people come from countries that they've never tasted freedom, real freedom before. Excuse my French, and I know it's not, are there any French people here? Of course not. We piss our freedom away. Some of these people want freedom so bad and they don't even know how. They don't know how to get it. Their countrymen, you think our countrymen don't listen to us. Try being from some of these countries. These are true heroes. This is the beginning of a global movement for freedom for all mankind. Your children and your grandchildren will ask if you remember these days, and you can say, not only do I remember, I was there. I want to give you a little bit of a history lesson, because I didn't hear anybody read poetry tonight, and I believe it's enough with the riffraff. Here, have a seat. It's time for some poetry. The history has markers all over it. It points to freedom all the time. We just have to be willing to recognize it, willing to see it, want to see it. We have to do what you've already done. Break out of the system. Red pill or blue pill, which do you choose? You've got to break out of the system and wake up, and you have. And here's the good news. Millions like you all over the world are waking up. Millions are waking up. So good to see you. Thank you. Let me tell you, Rudyard Kipling was an amazing guy, and all we remember is really the Jungle Book. But Rudyard Kipling wrote a poem called The Gods of the Copybook Headings. It is my favorite. It should be memorized in schools all over the world. He was begging people. He knew progressives. He knew Fabian socialists. And he knew they would erase it. And so he tried to bury it into poetry and see if any of this sounds familiar. Copybook headings are what they used to write at the top of pages, and when you would have to write your ABCs, it would say ABC, but then the copybook headings at the top would say, water will wet you, fire will burn, and the kids would sit there, well, and there were always things that everybody knew to be true. The Gods of the Copybook Headings by Rudyard Kipling. As I pass through my incarnations in every age and race, I make my proper prostrations to the gods of the marketplace. Peering through reverent fingers, I watch them flourish and fall. And the gods of the copybook headings, I notice, outlast them all. We were living in the trees when they met us. They showed us each in turn that water will certainly wet us and fire will certainly burn. But we found them lacking in uplift, vision, and breadth. So we left them to teach the gorillas while we followed the march of mankind. We moved as the Spirit listed, but they never altered their pace, neither cloud nor wind-born like the gods of the marketplace. But they always caught up with our progress, and presently word would come that a tribe had been wiped off its ice field or the lights had gone out in Rome, with the hopes that our world was built on that they were utterly out of touch. I mean, after all, they denied that the moon was Stilton. They denied she was even Dutch. They denied that wishes were horses. They denied that pigs had wings. So we worshiped the gods of the market that promised us all of these beautiful things. When the Cambrian measures were forming, they promised us perpetual peace. They swore if we just gave them our weapons, that the wars of the tribes would cease. But when we disarmed, they sold us, delivered, bound to our foe. And the gods of the copybook heading said, stick to the devil you know. On the first feminine sandstones, we were promised the fuller life, which started out by loving our neighbor and ended up by loving his wife. Till our women had no more children, and the men lost all their reason and faith. And the gods of the copybook heading said, the wages of sin is death. In the Carboniferous epoch, we were promised abundance for all by robbing selected Peter to pay for collective Paul. But though we had plenty of money, there was nothing our money could buy. And the gods of the copybook heading said, if you do not work, you shall die. Then the gods of the market tumbled, and their smooth-tongued wizards withdrew. And the hearts of the meanest were humbled, and began to believe that it was true, that all is not gold that glitters, and two do make four. And the gods of the copybook headings limped up to explain it once more. As it will be in the future, it was at the birth of man. There are only four things certain since social progress began: that the dog returns to his vomit, and the sow returns to her mire, and the burnt fool's bandaged finger goes wobbling back to the fire. And after all this is accomplished, and the brave new world begins, when all men are paid for existing, and no man must pay for his sins, as surely as water will wet us, as surely as fire will burn, the gods of the copybook headings with terror and slaughter return. This is a warning from Rudyard Kipling. And people say I'm not fun at a party. I mean, come on. Here's the thing. Rudyard Kipling, and every single generation there's been somebody like him crying out in warning. And the good news is, this generation in this country and 20 other countries are crying out and are waking people up. Here's what I want you to know. I believe this is the largest gathering of independent-minded conservatives ever in the history of America. I believe that tomorrow, with over 30,000 volunteers doing service in the Dallas-Fort Worth Metroplex, it is the largest collection of volunteers doing community service ever in America. And I hear there's a few people coming to the stadium on Saturday as well. This shouldn't freak out the people in power, not only in Washington, but all around the world. It should make them wet their pants. You have already won. You have already won. You've done your job. If we stick together, if we build on this, if we never, ever engage in hate, everything they say about us is a lie. Don't engage in lies back. They're not enemies of ours, they're enemies of His. They are enemies of man's freedom, and they will destroy themselves. Just give everybody a square deal. Tell everybody the truth. Never dishonor yourself. Serve your fellow man. You're here and you're witnessing something that happens every so often in this country. It is rare, even in this country. But these progressives and socialists have awakened a sleeping giant again. And here's how you win, not just in America. De Tocqueville came from France and tried to figure out what the secret was of America. And we for too long have forgotten. We for too long let community organizers, and we let the Red Cross and everybody else, we just wrote a check. It's not enough to write a check. De Tocqueville came and said, what is the secret of America? He looked in our ports, he looked in our shops, he looked in all of our institutions, he looked in Washington, he said he couldn't find it. He found it in our pulpits. He found it in our churches. He found that America was great because America is good, and America is still good. You've already won. Just finish the game with malice toward none and charity for all. God bless.